wondering if you believe that the government can both create and direct hurricanes.
In regard to creation, we never make any such claim. We can't know that. In regard to steering a storm, we can definitely state that is happening because we recorded it. And I heard on the former guest's argument that because it takes a specific amount of energy, or a specific amount of energy is created in a storm, that it takes an equal amount of energy to steer or direct the storm. All available data would completely refute that. In fact, we do know from Project Cirrus, which I know you correctly mentioned, Pat, that in 1947, the dumping of 80 pounds of dry ice into a storm strategically appeared to have such a profound effect on that storm that it made a 130-degree turn and made landfall when it was otherwise going out to sea. Lawsuits were pending, and the U.S. military then backtracked on that. What you see on the screen now, the frequency transmission energizing of the NextRad network, patented processes of frequency transmission that are known to repel air masses that are seeded with electrically conductive particles. Is it just a strange coincidence that that storm tracks in a way that would be a direct response of the repelling effect that is known to occur when these transmissions take place? So again, we've recorded storm after storm after storm, Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Michael, Hurricane Ian, and we can speculate on the agendas or objectives, but the fact that these patented processes of hurricane manipulation are occurring is undeniable, Pat.
And who is doing it? Is it the U.S. military? Do they have a separate entity that figures out when and where to do this and why?
I can tell you again what we know as a matter of record. We have government documents, Senate documents at geoengineeringwatch.org, one in particular 800 pages long, that outlines not just specific organizations within the U.S. government that are compartmentalized but a part of these operations, but also intergovernmental cooperation. This is very important. This is, your listeners can search this, Pat, at geoengineeringwatch.org, massive Senate document. The important sections are highlighted. We don't expect them to trudge through 800 pages, but this document, again, U.S. Senate document going back to 1978, specifically describes intergovernmental cooperation with these programs, even between otherwise adversarial nations, aka China, Russia, US, because you can't just geoengineer over your own border. And we know, because we have historical record, that the Soviet weather mod scientists were touring US weather mod facilities in the height of the Cold War in 1968, and our scientists were touring theirs. So again, this is not just a matter of any kind of speculation, it's historical record. And Pat, have you by chance seen the film of former U.S. President Lyndon Johnson in 1962, ranting like a lunatic, stating we had the power to control the world's cloud layer then?
Yeah, we have.
And he who controls the weather controls the world. Have you seen that?
Yeah, we've got that here. Go ahead and roll that.
And that message calls for new frontiers, new visions. It calls for us taking the steps now that will make us no longer second in space and in science. It lays the predicate and the foundation for a space communication satellite that will permit the people of the world to see one television program at the same time throughout the world.
Wow.
Think about that kind of communication.
Think about it.
And think about the opportunity that will provide. It lays the predicate and the foundation for the development of a weather satellite.
Weather satellite. Okay.
That will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer. And ultimately to control the weather. And he who controls the weather will control the world.
Wow.
There it is. Yeah.
So, but that's just a United States president. Said, what was he, vice president at the time? That's
the president today. The president who's in office today
called it
told
ridiculous.
us it was ridiculous.
Right. Right.
So, what do you got to say about that, Dane?
Those are all great points, guys. And again, the fact that they had to go to such length to have babbling Joe Biden try to spit out a line to refute this shows where they're at.
That's the big tip-off. That's the big tip-off. When the government tries to say a conspiracy theory is hogwash, that should be
it just makes you believe it more.
Right,
it sure does.
Right. So, Dane, I have a quick question. This is Keith Malinak. We just played the video of the Hurricane Helene. So are you saying that what we saw on that screen there, that is directing Helene on the track that she took? That's accurate? That's what you're saying?
I am.
Okay, so
I am.
So my question is, specifically, what were they trying to accomplish with directing its path? That's my first question. And then my second question would be, where would it have gone naturally? Where would the hurricane track naturally, by your estimation? And I realize these are both, you may not be able to answer these, but I'm just curious. What were they trying to accomplish, and where would it have gone if they hadn't been manipulating its direction?
To start with, on the agenda and objective part, we can speculate on that. There's no way we can know all the potential agendas and objectives being carried out. It is interesting that the Piedmont lithium mine that was hemorrhaging hundreds of millions of dollars because the residents were not cooperating with that mine. The mine had Pentagon contracts due in 2025. We know we're being shut down in that supply chain around the world. It is interesting that those residents are no longer a problem. That's one potential agenda or objective, but certainly there are likely many more, and whatever they may be, the bottom line is that storm was steered. Let's go to Hurricane Harvey. How could the so-called forecasters know 7 days in advance that storm was going to go where it did and sit there and spin for 3 days, dumping 50 inches of water? We recorded up close the frequency transmissions that prevented that storm from moving on land and breaking up. So the bottom line is where a storm may have gone, if it wasn't manipulated, we can speculate on that as well. But if we look all the way back again to Project Cirrus 1947, the dumping of only 80 pounds of dry ice strategically into the storm appeared to so affect its trajectory that, again, there were lawsuits pending, and then they tried to backtrack on the initial acknowledgement that they indeed manipulated the storm with a very minimal amount of input. And in regard, again, to that argument that because a hurricane creates a certain amount of energy, it takes an equal amount of energy to manipulate it, that's patently false. One single human being can change the course of a 10 million pound freight train with a single lever. It takes about 400 watts to manipulate that train. I'm just saying, just because you have a certain amount of kinetic energy doesn't mean it can't be steered and manipulated. And again, these are patented processes. Do you guys remember the Chinese government stating, "Don't worry about rain in the Olympics. It won't. We'll make sure."
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
And how about the recent Dubai flood?
Right.
Coincidentally, just days after Dubai said it was going to ditch the dollar, they were.
But we have no way of knowing that's the case. Really, I mean, we're just speculating.
On the dollar?
Yeah. I mean, no, we knew that happened, and we know the event happened. We don't know that they are both
Could
connected.
be just a wild coincidence.
Just a wild coincidence that they initially admitted was tainted with weather modification. They initially admitted that on the record in Dubai, and when it started to create the media storm it was creating, they walked that narrative back. Geoengineeringwatch.org recorded over the Persian Gulf frequency transmission signatures on cloud cover. It's very visible. It's perfect herringbone patterns on the clouds. That's a frequency transmission the day before and the day of this event. So if we go back further to other potential weather mod interventions, Mexico pushed back against these programs in early 2023. They also pushed back against some of the Middle Eastern policies. Then we had Hurricane Otis, an insignificant tropical depression. There wasn't even warnings issued, and in less than 24 hours, it underwent extreme intensification into the strongest Cat 5 hurricane to ever hit that section of the world, decimated Acapulco. They'll never come back. In regard to strengthening the storms, and we hear that term a lot now, rapid intensification, can they help to intensify a storm by manipulating atmospheric pressure zones with weapons of mass destruction like HARP? Short answer, yes. The science is clear.